What is the appropriate age you start paying your child roughly 13,000 a year that is allowed tax-free deductible? My parents both work for/with me. Is there any way I can tie them into the family management company for MRP purposes?
I have a whole training on this. It's called the Hire Your Kids Now Masterclass, but ultimately the concept is called income shifting. That's the actual tax reduction strategy. It's referred to as income shifting. And it is applicable in any circumstance where you are currently providing economic support to a third party, whether that is your children, whether that is your parents, whether that is the neighbor kid down the street, right? It doesn't matter to me. So long as that person's tax bracket, effective tax rate is lower than yours, it makes sense to income shift, meaning put them into the family management company so that you are not the one who's paying the taxes on those dollars. They are the one paying the taxes on the dollars received. It's all about the net, right? If your effective tax rate was 50%, that's not what really happens in life, but let's assume that it was just for this illustration. And let's say your parents' tax bracket was 20% and you wanted to give them $80,000. Well, in order for you to give them $80,000, you would have to earn $160,000 because you'd be taxed on 50% of that. But if you wanted to give them $80,000 at their tax bracket, you would just have to pay them $100,000. You'd get $100,000 deduction for yourself. They would pay income tax, which would equate to $20,000 if their effective rate was 20, and they would still net 80. The benefit is you don't have to worry about trying to get 160, pay taxes on it, and then give them the after-tax amount. You simply shift the pre-tax amount to them, let them pay the taxes, and then the overall spectrum is great, right? Now, when it comes to your own minor children, there are some special added benefits. If the child is your child, either by birth or adoption, and they are a minor, which is aged 17 years or younger, you are not required to withhold payroll taxes. None of them. Not FICA, not unemployment, not disability, none of those. If your child is 2 years old, let's say, can you hire your children? I've had many arguments with many accountants all across the country on this. There is nothing that, in all honesty, can be said that requires a child to be a certain age to be paid. They just have to be paid a reasonable compensation for services rendered. So if you have a 2-year-old, that 2-year-old is not going to be the person who's handling your social media accounts. They're not going to be doing that, but they could show up in your social media channel. You could take photographs of them. You could have them filmed and be part of your social content or on your website and things of that nature. I started paying my daughter when she was 4. My son was 6, and they were showing up inside of my website. Their photo was taken. It was published to some brochure material that we were handing out at the time. Now they get paid all the time because they show up at my social media feed, right? They show up on my Instagram account. They show up on my TikTok account, my Facebook account, and I pay them every time their image is shown. In fact, I license their image and I include their image in some of my stage presentations. I'm also a public speaker. I get invited to speak at multiple events all across the country. So when they show up in a photograph and I'm talking about a concept that's related to them, I pay them a licensing fee because their image is shown during something that I'm making revenue from. It just has to be a reasonable compensation for services rendered. Now, if your children are older, now my son is getting older, he's 10 years old now. He actually helps me around our administrative home office, meaning he helps to organize some of the stuff that I have there. He makes sure he actually takes out the trash, if you will, quote unquote, from the administrative home office. He takes it from the office. He vacuums in there. My daughter actually vacuums in there too because she likes playing around with the vacuum machine. But you can compensate them for reasonable services rendered. Now, you can't compensate a 2-year-old, likely, I'm going to say this because I'm a lawyer. At the end of the day, nothing is impossible, but it is highly improbable that you can justify a $14,600 salary to a 1-year-old because it has to be reasonable, unless your business relies on daily social media and having imagery of your own children is related to the type of business you have and would support it. It's all about justification. What is reasonable? What is something that the third party who's looking at it that is a prudent person would say, yes, this is a reasonable thing to be done. But can you absolutely pay a child that is an infant? Yes. Why? Because there are plenty of television programs, plenty of movies that have babies in them, literal babies. Those babies get paid actors, actresses that are infants get paid. And typically they will result and revert to something called the Screen Actors Guild rates. These are published rates that the Screen Actors Guild, SAG, makes available to people. Now, again, everything I just shared with you, I go into way more detail inside of our Hire Your Kids Now masterclass, but at a very high level, everything I shared is the strategy called income shifting. The goal is to get the money out of your tax bracket and to get it into someone's lower tax bracket. Anyone can earn up to $14,600. And if that's all the money they earn, there's zero tax because that's the standard deduction. So if you pay your parents and they don't make any other money anywhere else, and you pay them $14,600, there's no tax event. You've income shifted from your tax bracket to theirs, which is zero. So that's the goal.
You have to run payroll.
I always suggest running payroll because you want to document the process that there is no payroll tax. There's no FICA, right? What the FICA? There's no Social Security, there's no Medicare, there's no unemployment, there's no short-term disability, none of that stuff, because your minor child, that is your child, meaning again from birth and or adoption, well, not and or, it's birth or adoption, is what's considered an exempt employee for withholding. That's the guideline by which we go. And that's how I've been able to shift. I probably should do the calculation of how much dollars I've shifted out of my tax bracket to the kids over the course of the past 4 years now. And each year we've gotten pretty darn close to maxing out for each child that we've put outside of our own tax bracket into their tax bracket, which was zero. And then we simply use those dollars to do the things we were spending the money on them anyway, right? So we didn't do anything new. We didn't spend additional money. We just spent the existing money we were spending already on them, just in a preferential tax environment.
Oh, question, Edward, just to make it a little bit deeper. Now we've run payroll onto my kids. Now, if I max out their IRAs and
another $7,000 this year.
So can I now, I will be able to deduct that
$21,600. If it's a traditional IRA, a traditional IRA contribution reduces your taxable income. If you want to do Roth IRA, you can't do the 21. You can still do $14,600, but you could do $7,000 of that and contribute that into a Roth IRA for them. In order to contribute to a retirement account, they have to have earned income. That's why I like running payroll, because it helps to substantiate that they've earned the income. Although all the other documentation you should be doing is also a substantiation feature. Like, again, we talk about this with our Blueprint clients a lot. We actually talk about like these structures all the time, setting these up the right way, making sure that things are organized in such a way that you run the operations, quote unquote, of the family management company. You're leasing those employees to your other companies. The companies are paying that invoiced fee on whatever the regular cadence is, and you're shifting money. You're just pushing it into a different ecosystem, and that ecosystem is how you spend the money. And then you really want to level this up. You create a new credit card, and you get each child assigned as an authorized user of those cards, and then you spend the money that you were going to spend anyway, but you use the credit card to do it, and you pay that credit card from the child's custodial account every month. And even though they do not get a credit event while they are a minor, the entire history of that card when they turn 18 reports to their credit report. So they can start off with a high 7 credit score, like a 750, 760, 780 at times. Depends on where you are region-wise and exactly how much money you spent and how much you used it, and the actual duration of time that's transpired. There are a number of credit cards that will only issue authorized at age 13 and above, but there are some that will issue at infancy. You just go ahead and you call and say, hey, listen, I want an authorized user. What's your minimum? You can even do a Google search now because there's so many different resources out there. You just go and Google credit cards issue age or authorized user age. You could definitely just link them as an authorized user depending on their age.